India and UK have today signed a free trade agreement, a historic milestone in the trade relations between the two countries. The trade deal, which was agreed upon in May this year, has been signed during PM Modi's visit to the UK. This agreement has been finalized with an aim to enhance bilateral trade to $120 billion by 2030, effectively doubling the current trade volume between the two nations. Prime Minister Modi has hailed the signing of the trade pact, calling it a blueprint for shared prosperity.
यह समझौता मात्र आर्थिक साझेदारी नहीं, बल्कि साझा समृद्धि की योजना है। एक और भारतीय टेक्सटाइल, फुटवियर, जेम्स एंड ज्वेलरी, सी फूड और इंजीनियरिंग गुड्स को यूके में बेहतर मार्केट एक्सेस मिलेगा। भारत के एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस और प्रोसेस्ड फूड इंडस्ट्री के लिए यूके की मार्केट में नए अवसर बनेंगे।
Now, this free trade agreement has been signed after years of protracted negotiations. Let's take a quick look at how India will gain from this deal. When it comes to agriculture and processed foods, clearly it's going to be duty-free access for over 95% of products from India. When it comes to textiles and apparel, they will be boosting their competitiveness against rivals such as Bangladesh. Pharmaceuticals and chemicals, zero tariffs on generics, medical devices and key chemicals that will be levied here. What about mobility for services? Because now there will be easier access for yoga instructors, IT professionals, chefs, etc., several other categories of service professionals who can now access the UK markets. There's also the larger question of autos and alcohol. Tariff cuts on Scotch whiskey and luxury vehicles. There will be phased reductions over 10 years that are now going to be expected. Interestingly, the Prime Minister drew a cricket analogy to describe the relationship between the two countries, saying straight pat diplomacy is bolstering ties between India and the UK.
Both of us, cricket is not just a game, but a passion, and also a great metaphor for our partnership. There may be a swing and a miss at times, but we always play with a straight bat. We are committed to building high-scoring, solid partnership.
Prime Minister Modi's next stop is Malé, where he will attend Maldives' 60th Independence Day celebration on July 26th. His presence will mark a major turnaround in ties between the neighbors. Opposition, however, is not convinced. They say that BJP government makes tall claims about Modi's foreign policy, but the outcomes are limited.
Already he met 18 times China Premier Xi Jinping. What has been the result? They make very tall claim and rooftop. They cry from rooftop, and ultimately it all goes in negative, and it always goes what they say.
I don't know what agreement he is going to sign, what's his interest, whether he is interested in his own country or he's just interested traveling outside UK, US on some small countries and getting some awards from there. So the main point is, what's his interest with the country where he's the Prime Minister of India? It makes sense, you know. So this is why I don't know why he wants to run back, and why doesn't he wants to answer All India Trinamool Congress and the National General Secretary of All India Trinamool Congress, Shri Abhishek Bandyopadhyay.
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And for more on this, let's go across to a person whose many say is an architect of this entire trade deal, has played a very important role. It's Baron Karan Moria, who's now joining us here on the News Hour. Thanks so much for speaking to us here at Times Now. Also, congratulations on the signing of the India UK free trade agreement where you were closely involved in the negotiations. Let me begin by asking you how significant this is, and can you tell us about the negotiations that unfolded behind the scenes, because it took quite a while to ink this agreement.
Yes, I'm absolutely delighted. In fact, I've just come from the location, Chequers, the Prime Minister's country residence, where the deal has been signed. And it is an atmosphere of celebration for both the UK and India. I got involved in this right from the very beginning when the negotiations started in early 2022, when I was president of the Confederation of British Industry, the CBI. And it took over 3 years to actually conclude the deal, which was announced on the 6th of May. And I'm now the chairman of the International Chamber of Commerce, the ICC UK, and the regional coordinator for Europe, the largest business organization in the world. So I'm absolutely thrilled. It took a long time. The negotiations, 14 rounds of negotiations to get to conclude the deal, because it is a comprehensive deal. And it is a deal between the 4th largest and 6th largest economies in the world. And let's put this into perspective. India is the fastest growing major economy in the world, 4th largest economy in the world. We're the 6th largest, and yet India is only the 11th largest trading partner of the United Kingdom. It should be one of the handful of biggest trading partners of the UK. Our level of goods and services trade at the moment is £42 billion. I believe as a result of this free trade agreement now being signed, the trade in goods and services between our two countries will more than double within the next 5 years to over £80 billion. This is wonderful news for UK and India businesses, for our economies and our people.
All right, and the pictures come in of Prime Minister Modi meeting with King Charles there in London. Let me ask you, Baron Billy Moria, what's in it for India? 90% of UK imports to India will face serious reduction in duties, but in terms of India's export competitiveness, what are the key details that we need to be aware of?
Yes, the Indian economy benefits because it will help increase Indian exports to the UK. Because the duty has been reduced significantly and eliminated in most cases. And from the Indian side, the Indian consumer is going to benefit because Scotch whiskey, which had 150% duty, is going to go down to 75% and to 40% within the next 10 years. And India is the biggest Scotch whiskey market in the world. Imported cars from the UK, which were being charged 100% duty to the Indian consumer, is going to be reduced to 10%. With a quota basis. So this is all very good news for the Indian consumer. So there's much, much bigger potential going forward. India is a global economic superpower, but soon will be, alongside America and China, a superpower in its own right. And I've always forecasted that India will be the largest economy in the world by 2060.
Right. There's another big takeaway for India, which appears to be the liberalization of the visa regime for Indian citizens employed with Indian companies working in the UK. How is this deal a game changer as far as they are concerned?
What this free trade agreement includes is the exclusion of paying national insurance for workers from Indian companies transferred to an Indian company in the UK for the first 3 years, and vice versa for British companies based in India who transfer a British worker to India. They don't pay the equivalent contribution. And this is only fair. We have this arrangement in the UK with 17 other countries where if the worker comes from the other country, and in this case from India, for the first 3 years, they don't pay national insurance because they're coming as temporary workers. Why should they be contributing national insurance, which goes towards their pensions and other benefits that they will never see the benefit of? So it's only fair, and it's reciprocal. And of course, if that person stays on for more than 3 years, then they will have to pay the national insurance. And of course, we have a points-based system for bringing in people. They have to qualify under a points-based system from our immigration rules.
Well, this is a very important FTA. There are other free trade agreements that India has been negotiating, and one of them is with the EU. Where does that particular agreement stand?
I think the EU free trade agreement, from my understanding with India, is imminent. It is possibly after the summer. We could hopefully see it being concluded, and that'll be very good news for India and for the EU. And of course, with the EU, you're talking about 27 countries that have to agree to it. But I believe, from what I hear, it's getting very close to being agreed.
Thank you so much, Warren, Karan, Moria, for joining us and explaining what really the implication of that free trade agreement really is. And congratulations once again on the signing of that agreement, where you've been a very key player. Let's take this across to our guest now joining us. With us is Charu Pragya, national spokesperson of BJP. We have Rajat Sethi, author and economist, joining us. Professor Dhruva Kumar is a politician and educationist with us. We have Dr. Akashdeep Muni, political analyst, joining us. Professor Manojit Mandal, political analyst, also with us. But my first question goes across to Dr. Santosh Mehrotra, senior economist and visiting professor at the University of Bath. It's not just this particular free trade agreement. Dr. Mehrotra, we've seen other free trade agreements being signed. There's also the visit of the Prime Minister to Maldives that's happening at the same time. Many would say that this is the approach of the government economically and otherwise, also a muscular approach. While it has been criticized by the opposition domestically, there are some very concrete results that it appears to be producing, at least as far as the economic part, the trade part of diplomacy is concerned. Your views on this, Dr. Mehrotra?
Well, it clearly is something that the UK was very much hoping for the following reason. The UK came out of the EU about 4 years ago. After that, it's been hoping that it will sign big agreements because it was forced to then diversify away from the EU because the free trade agreement with the EU disappeared. Now, this is the first, as the Prime Minister Keir Starmer said, this is the first of their big agreements. They've also signed one with, of course, the United States. They have got some big wins for themselves because public procurement has been opened up for them. And this is something that we will have to watch out for what the implications are. On the other hand, from our perspective, it is hoped that because the tariffs are now going to be down on 99% of our exports, particularly our labor-intensive exports, especially those which are undertaken by small and medium enterprises, which are in the area of leather and footwear, textiles, garments, and gems and jewelry, those might benefit. So that would be a benefit certainly for us. But I was just listening to some discussion on this subject on British television because, as it happens, I'm right now in the UK at the University of Bath. And the PIB's projection of the current value of total trade between India and the UK going from $55 billion, which it is currently,
right,
to $100 billion is not exactly.
No, so are you saying, Dr. Mehrotra, this is going to benefit the UK, then it's going to benefit India? Is that what you're saying in a nutshell?
No. That's too simplistic, Madhav. I'm not saying things like that. I never speak in such simplistic terms. A trade agreement which has been negotiated for 3 years is obviously going to play itself out, and we will have to wait to see how it plays itself out. I am saying that it's not going to increase trade very significantly for us, nor is it going to.
Okay, you're saying it's not going to benefit trade as much as it's being touted out to be. Let's get in a response from Rajat Sethi to what you're stating. Rajat, do you agree with Professor Mehrotra? He says that perhaps it's not something that is going to yield the kind of results as it's being projected to, if I've understood him correctly. Rajat.
Well, I don't think Santosh Mehrotra ji is saying that, because that would be a flawed argument. So I'm sure if he's a seasoned economist, he won't say that. I mean, if you're removing friction from the path, the net flow of trade from both the sides, it is going to increase. And the way both countries have taken their time to negotiate this. It is not a scenario where you are pitting one country's gain versus the other country's gain and trying to do a comparison and trying to come out of that result. Both countries have to gain. Both countries have to look at markets, and you cannot, negotiate any of such agreements looking at in an isolated manner that, hey, I only want to protect our country's needs and not address what the counterparty is trying to say. So this is where the twain have to meet, and both of them have to come to the middle ground. There would be a lot of things which the deep tech ecosystem in India, which is currently thriving with a lot of young entrepreneurs working very hard to have access to international markets. UK is currently, barring in certain areas, is looking for AI talent. They want IT professionals to come in and re-energize their economy. So from an India's perspective, I believe services was a sticky point, visas was a sticky point, and this is where 3 to 4 years went in. And finally, we've come out pretty successful, where we have negotiated 60,000 IT jobs, which can go which can be created into the UK, and our talented pool can go in there, and they don't have to worry about visas being rejected. This nationalistic regime that we are seeing in this streak that we are seeing in the US unfold into other areas. So that way, if you see, it has opened up a remarkable opportunity from a services standpoint for India. It has also opened a remarkable market for the UK and UK's cars and goods and other engineering goods to come into India. And this is how a win-win scenario is created. And I also want to stress upon this point that certain sensitive sectors like oilseeds, something that impacts our bottom rung farmers, that has been kept out. This is why it is said that it is 99%.
That's what India is hoping for when it comes to agriculture as well, with a US deal. And let me bring in Professor Monojit Mandal on that note. Professor Monojit Mandal, at a time when there are negotiations and they're believed to be in the final stage with the US, the interim trade deal there that's expected to be announced, nothing final yet about it. But many say that, or do you believe that this could be a messaging also somewhere for the United States in terms of India successfully signing this trade deal with the UK, which protects Indian agriculture and several of the key areas that are very sensitive in nature for India?
You see, what are those key areas I want to know? For example, the sector that I come from, education, I think is one of the biggest industries for the UK. And look at the amount of money our students need to pay there. It's almost 3 lakhs per month to get into good colleges in London. So what are the benefits? And I want to understand, under the garb of these signing up and getting prizes and awards from the smaller countries, are the government trying to hide what happened in Pahalgam? Did the British government unequivocally condemn the attacks on Pahalgam, or condemned what the US government did by hyphenating us with Pakistan? The answer is clear, no. So what are you trying to do? I mean, facts remain that, in fact, why are you going to sign the free trade to send the criminals back to India? They're still looming large in London. Bijay Mallya, Mehul Chokshi, Lalit Modi. When are they going to come back? There will be huge trades if these criminals can be sent back.
Okay.
So the fundamentals, you are missing the whole fundamental points about the people who looted money, and here just the garb of show up pictures building image of the Vishwaguru is actually a failed Vishwaguru. Could not convince the UK government to even
Professor
condemn
Mandal, the last I heard is a free trade agreement. It's not a criminal exchange program or any such agreement that has been signed between the two countries. But nevertheless, since you put the question, Charu Pragya, please respond. Why sign a free trade agreement in a country where several of our fugitive economic offenders, criminals, what have you, are currently present? Charu Pragya.
So, Madhav, let me first begin by saying that I feel very sad that our opposition cannot even read something before they come and rant on television. It's just a rant full of hatred. They don't open their eyes, they don't bother to read, they don't bother to understand what is happening. Here, India is not just signing a deal, it's a declaration. It's a declaration that we are not just participating in global trade, we are shaping it. And I think Mr. Mandal cannot see that the bilateral trade now is going to be touching 25 billion pounds. Do you know what that means for India? MSMEs are getting touched, the gem and jewelry businesses are going to be touched, the digital professionals are going to be touched, and Indian workers abroad are going to be saving thousands of crores in taxes. thousands of crores, and this benefits India. In a great way, this benefits India, but you will not see any of that because you're blinded. And it's so sad. He's blinded. Jairam Ramesh is blinded. What are they even doing? Are they bothering to read anything before they come and rant against the country? Because I see not one thing that India has achieved in the last 10 years has been celebrated by anybody in the opposition. How blind can you be? You don't see India's rise. This is not just our only FTA, but yes, it is one of our most
Professor Mandal,
important
respond to that. This is just blind criticism. You're not looking at the larger picture where there's actually been forward progress with multiple countries when it comes to such trade agreements which benefit the Indian economy and also benefit the other economies.
Mr. Madhav, in the last 10 years, how many thousand miles our Prime Minister has traveled? And show me two most biggest benefits of those travels. Forget about these troubles. In the last 10 years, I'm challenging. What are the benefits? Like I mentioned, please identify the sectors in which the India could benefit. Like in case of education, are the foreign universities coming to India and are they going to give cheap education to us? Like Oxford, Cambridge, London universities? I want to know as an educationist whether they're coming to India and giving cheap education to best quality education to Indian students. Or are they going to come to India again to charge the same amount of money as the foreign universities in India are still doing, like the Chicago University and other universities? I want to know the areas. Forget about Tutu Meme, forget about all the prevarications. We have seen
Let
enough
me bring in
of this
Professor
trouble
Dhruva Kumar. He's an educationist. He's an Indian based in the UK. Professor Dhruva Kumar, why aren't the UK's... Charu, just come into you. One second. I want to bring in, since he asked a specific question on education, we have an educationist on the panel who's based in the UK and has played an important role in this trade agreement. Professor Dhruva Kumar, would you like to respond to Professor Mandal? He says, where are these big universities? Are they going to provide cheap education in India? Or are they going to charge the same exorbitant prices that they charge in the UK to Indians in India? Your response to that, Professor Kumar.
Well, thanks for having me. Well, rather than being politicians, and I have been active in Scottish politics and being an educationist, Indian students have been coming in a quite large number of the volume, you can say, over the past 5 years. It has always been. There has been great bilateral ties. Yes. What his opponent or other voice are saying is India is a very price-sensitive market for a student. But due to the bilateral ties and higher education that comes, this free trade agreement, particularly on education, has gone beyond the expectation. What I would expect from the both countries, which is part of this free education, well, this is the free trade agreement, is they are getting benefited equally. For example, from Scotland, Aberdeen University is go out in Mumbai to open the campus. So, of course, the quality, enhanced research, the grants that come in between, the research collaboration goes in, a student exchange program comes in, and this is the bilateral agreement. What it has to be looked into in a different segment from the education point of view is UK universities will be going out in Indian campus to set up, and that is part of the FTA. However, European universities or other university will be following the same lead. So if you look from the angle, this is a strategic motion, and that's a strategic put the India in global picture. You have to look the geopolitical segment that is happening in the Middle East. The war between Ukraine and Russia, China and US trade war. And that has direct impact over the jobs, the education, and the free flow. But in this, if you look at both governments has signed in, and Scotland, where I'm sitting here right now, and being part of this Scottish politics and education, I can clearly see how Indian students is going to be benefited. Point one, their employment into the job sector within the UK will be very much enhanced. They got the major access to the UK industry. Now, UK industries got bigger access into India because the tariff has lowered down. For example, let's say from a Scottish salmon, it used to be...
Okay, I got your argument. Let me see if the other panelists also agree with you. Dr. Akashdeep Muni, you agree with that? You know, the training will be very specific. It will be in Mumbai, and I believe there are several universities from the UK and other parts of the world that are or have permission from the UGC to set up their campuses in various parts of Mumbai and Navi Mumbai. and that permission was given very recently. Do you agree with the previous panelist on that?
But Madhavji, unfortunately, they charge the same fees that they charge in London, not in India. So students will have to pay the same fees. The elite will be getting the education, not the poor. Anyway, coming on to the free trade agreement, as the photo of, I'll tell you, as the photo of subside and real profit and loss is measured, it will show the Indo-US free trade deal has unequal economic benefits. More for UK, less for India. Let me explain now. UK Treasury projects 4.8 billion pounds increase in GDP annually from this deal, while India's GDP gain is said to be just growing by 0.1%. No major UK tariff cuts in Indian IT sector, textile sector, agriculture sector, which are India's export strengths, while UK got tariff reduction on key exports like whiskey, like cars, like pharma from 125% to 10%. Now, unfortunately, there is no substantial relaxation in UK work visa rule for Indian professionals also. India agreed to open $500 to $600 billion government procurement sector to UK bidders, but India has no reciprocal access to UK public contracts. Car imports tariffs reduced from 125% to 10% for UK vehicles, while Indian cars still face the strict UK emission and safety barriers. In FY 2024, India already had a 3.1 billion pounds trade deficit with UK. With easier UK exports, this particular deficit is said to be even go ahead. So I will tell you,
Akashdeep Muni, I think you have a long list. You've come well prepared today. I'll give you that. But the only lack of your preparation is that while you're referring to one in billions of dollars, you're referring to the impact of the other in percentage terms. Why you would choose to do that? Or compare incomparables, compare apples and oranges? I don't understand.
What is 0.1% of our GDP?
Comes down. I will agree with you that Modi diplomacy.
Rajat wants to respond to you. Okay, Rajat, once again, just Akashdeep Muni, you made some points. Now listen to the response. Be brave enough to listen. Rajat, your response. Coming to Charu once again.
Madhav, I want to pull my hair. Why don't you make mathematics as a basic qualification before you call people on your television discussions? It is mind-numbing. He just said 0.1% of India's GDP. Do you know how much is that? And you are comparing it with 4.8 billion pounds. 0.1% of Indian GDP is exactly that number. But you are as moronic as it can get, because in your hatred for anything
no personal remarks. No personal remarks. No personal. Yeah.
No. This is absolutely absurd. You cannot come out and deliberately try to agendas.
Well, I pointed that out. I pointed that out.
Stupid.
Rajat is right. He's lying.
Pointed that out. Santosh Mehrotra, you agree with Akashdeep Muni?
No, Akashdeep has got his numbers all jumbled up, I'm sorry to say. Can I just tell you what the UK government's own estimates are in respect of the increase in trade that is likely to ensue on account of this agreement? It's nowhere close to what has been put out by the Press Information Bureau. The Press Information Bureau says that the current value of total trade, and India, by the way, has a consistent export surplus. In other words, India exports more to the UK, both of goods as well as services, than it imports. It has for the last 10 years, it has an export surplus. Be that as it may, the point is that the PIB puts out in its summary of the agreement. I have just received the agreement and I was scrolling through the agreement. The point is, it puts out the projection that it will rise from 55 billion to 100 billion, the PIB does. Since I'm sitting in the UK, I've obviously been watching UK channels, and UK experts are saying that the rise is not going to be anywhere close to that.
Okay.
It's actually going to be in the ballpark of about $20 billion from now till by 2040.
Okay. The projection. So there's a difference in the projections. You believe that there is a difference in the projections. But Akashdeep Muni, this is not somebody from the BJP or somebody who supports the right wing who's actually correcting you. This is somebody who's actually normally very critical of the center and is a very respected economist who says you've got your numbers all jumbled up on national television.
See, Madhav, I will not stoop down to the chota level of Rajat Sethi, who slangs and gives slangs on national television. It shows his upbringing and best of luck
No
for his
personal comments. I said that. Akashdeep, I said that. No personal comments at that point of time. I'm going to say the same to you. Let's not waste time on these side debates.
But I will tell you, on the topic, I will agree with all of the pro people here that India succeeded in this trade deal. If the trade deficit comes down, can they promise on national television that the trade deficit will come down for the next year?
He just said it's an export surplus. Akashdeep Muni, what has happened to you today? Professor Mehrotra just said we are trade export surplus. Santosh Mehrotra, would you like to respond? I'm sorry I'm laughing so much today, but this is hilarious. He just said it's export surplus. Professor Mehrotra, Economics 101, please. Trade Economics 101 for Professor Muni.
No. Akash can just go to Google and actually Google this. I don't have to correct him. Let's not go there. It's just unfortunate. Can we just remain on the more substantive, Madhav?
Yeah.
I think that's what's more important. So, yeah. Do you have a specific question for me? I will answer it.
All right. I just thought you'd like to respond to him because he was insisting that there is a trade deficit and you just said there isn't.
What's the point?
And you're very well respected, and when it comes to economics, I thought you'd like to respond to him. But Charu wants to come in. I'm going to allow her to get in a few words and then come back to you. Charu.
Yeah, so Madhav, I was only talking about GDP then, which Rajat has very effectively answered, followed by the economist, because I think the opposition forgets that India's GDP is steadily rising. We are soon to be the third largest economy in the world. So when you compare our GDP, and that too in percentage, with that of UK, you're falling flat on your face. Don't make a fool of yourself. You know, that's why you've not been relevant to Indian politics for such a long time, because you cut off your nose to spite your face. That's what you have become. He also talked about cars and cutting auto tariffs. I don't think they've bothered to read the FTA at all, Madhav, because that applies only to the luxury segment. None of the everyday use cars are getting impacted. In fact, India's market, when it comes to auto production, is steadily on the rise, with electric vehicles ruling the roost now. So India's rise should be celebrated by those in the opposition also, especially on a day as important as this one. I just keep feeling bad for them because they make themselves more and more irrelevant when it comes to India's rise, and that means they're going to be more and more irrelevant in India's future politically.
Akashdeep Muni?
Sir, Charu has been a very good friend. I'll tell you, Charu, listen. Business is all about...
नहीं आप पढ़ लो ना प्लीज आकाश जी, आप पढ़ लो ना, टीवी पर मैं आपको बता रही हूं, मैं आई एम सेविंग यू फ्रॉम फर्दर एम्बैरेसमेंट.
पढ़ने से पहले सुनना पड़ता है. बिजनेस इज ऑल अबाउट,
पढ़ने से पहले सुनना पड़ता है.
सर सुनना पड़ता है.
क्या बोल रहे हैं आप? पढ़कर सुनाइए सर लोगों को. I think this is quite indicative of the reason we have all these, points coming in from nowhere.
Madhav, point by point,
पढ़ने से पहले सुनना पड़ता है.
Every point raised by Akashdeep ji, every single point.
Give me 10 seconds, then you speak. I
And
am saying that
quickly, 10 seconds. Your time begins now.
The trade deficit for the last 2024 FY year was 3.8 billion pounds. That is, the export was less, import was more. If this particular deal is good, the import will be less, export will
Professor
be more.
Malhotra, Professor Mehrotra, please. Professor Mehrotra, please.
Yes, promise the deficit will come down.
Professor Mehrotra, your response to Mr. Muni.
I'm not even
Madhav, it's very straightforward. The fact of the matter is that we have a very buoyant services sector, and we have had a consistent export surplus on the services. In 1 or 2 years, if we have a goods deficit, it's more than offset. More importantly, even in the goods sector, Mr. Muni unfortunately cited just 1 year. The fact of the matter is, by and large, our exports have been greater. You know, who is greater, who is less, this is a less relevant issue here.
Okay. Let's leave it there. I'd like to thank all our panelists. It's been an interesting debate. Of course, a lot of facts, a lot of counters, a lot of facts that weren't facts. But Charu Pragya, Rajat Sethi, Professor Dhruva Shobha Kumar, Dr. Akashdeep Puni, Professor Manojit Mandal, and Dr. Santosh Mehrotra. Thanks so much for joining us this evening.